What's going on? Oh my gosh, I wasn't even working. Welcome to the Board Game Secret Show episode 2. We made it, and we made it because of you. Maybe you're still watching, I don't know, but there were a couple nice comments and that fueled me to put this together again. It is a ramble of random board game stuff that I'm interested in a particular week, and that's basically it. There is no real consistent structure as of episode 2, but we're gonna figure it out. We'll just figure it out. You know, it's Sunday morning. I'm recording this. Time change just happened. How's everyone feeling about that? This one's a little bit different for me because I live in the Northwest where we're kind of in perpetual dark, and it is a signal of light and sun, and all of the vitamin D needs will hopefully be met soon. But at the same time, we're losing some sleep. So this one is bittersweet. However, I am always happy to see it because I'd much rather have sun than sleep. So today on the show, we're going to go over some games that arrived this week. My FOMO pick of the week. I'm not a big, in fact, I've never done a crowdfunding video per se. I've done one coverage on one game. I'm not that guy. I don't have that access, but I certainly do have the FOMO like many of you do. And we've got an interesting one this week that might have a little bit of controversy surrounding it. Also going to go over some of the stuff I'm watching, and the big topic, the reason that you might have clicked on this, is we're going to talk a little bit about bias in board game content creation. It's certainly a hot topic, so we're gonna jump into it. It's something that's been on my mind for quite a while. Anyways, we won't start there. We're gonna start with what got here this week, and something I was really excited about is 7th Citadel. And you know, I'm not a big narrative game guy. With that said, right now I am playing Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. I've gotten through one campaign. I started to film a second campaign. There is an episode up. Nobody clicked on it, so maybe you can go and click on it right now and let it play. You don't even have to listen to it. It's fine. I just you know, feed the algorithm god for me. I'm just kidding. No, seriously, do it. So yeah. Anyways, my mind is possibly changing around kind of narrative-based games, as long as there's some mechanics, as I am certainly mechanics first, but you know, perfect games have great themes, great art, great story, and great mechanics. So I'm not totally opposed to story in game. It's just not something that is kind of like the first thing that I look at. And 7th Citadel is certainly a text-heavy game. It's a successor to 7th Continent, a game that I didn't play. And I watched Kanji Studios playthrough, which I mentioned in last week's episode, and I was just really intrigued. I thought it was just really weird and something interesting that I wanted to try. So I FOMO bought it on eBay, and I have it here now. So it arrived from Canada. It was a long ship, but I do have it. So I'm excited to jump into that. I honestly don't have, I maybe have like 30 minutes of gameplay that I've watched in that playthrough, and then I just stopped. I didn't want to know anything else about it, which might also be why nobody clicked on the Distant Skies video. That nuance was not lost on me. I know people don't like spoilers, but anyways, I digress. I'm excited about it. Has anyone played 7th Citadel? Do you guys like it? Is there anything I should know? Any things you wish you would have known prior to jumping into that campaign? I'd love to hear about it. Second game that arrived is Role Player Adventures. This is one I've been literally trying to trade for forever. And it seems like every single time I put in a trade request, I don't care how much I'm offering, it's just like, it's no. And even if it's on people's trade lists, they're super hesitant to get rid of it, and that makes me want it more. I think that's an interesting dynamic when people have it on a list, but I have a hard time making trades. And I have good games. I go through lots of games, and I'm not offering crap for it. But yeah, I've been trying to get it forever. I don't know when I'll get it to the table. 7th Citadel is certainly next on the list. I don't know. Does anyone want to see coverage on Role Player Adventures? Does anyone want to see a playthrough on that at all? I don't know. I don't know what I'll do with it. It's really a personal game. You know, maybe if I get through it and get into the expansion content I could review. I don't know. I don't know if anyone even cares about that game anymore, but I do, and I think it's it could be pretty cool. I watched, was it Rob's Gaming Table playthrough of it, and it was pretty interesting, and I trust his opinion, and he seemed to like it a lot. So ever since then I've been trying to trade for it, but anyways, I didn't make the trade for it. I got it on Game Nerds. I think it was the deal of the day. I think that's why I finally pulled the trigger on it. I'm pretty sure that's why because I didn't have any particular impetus to go and buy it right then. It must have been a deal of the day. See, that shows kind of how broken I am as a board game consumer. So that's Role Player Adventures. I'm excited to get that one to the table. Another, I wouldn't call it narrative based, but another kind of open world adventure game. Sleeping Gods has kind of wet my whistle for that stuff, so maybe I'll jump down there. Maybe my board game tastes are evolving. I don't know. Have yours over time? I came into the hobby with some basic mechanical base games, and it's slowly evolved over time. There was a point that I wouldn't have ever imagined playing something like Too Many Bones. In fact, I had a coworker that was explaining how he was playing Too Many Bones at lunch during the pandemic, and I didn't understand it. I didn't get it, but it kind of sparked something. I started watching content on it, and then I just became absolutely obsessed, like so much in my life. Anyways, where the hell was I? I guess that's what this is. This is my ramble show. Role Player Adventures. Got it. Okay, third game. Third game. I'm gonna try that again. Puerto Rico. I got the 1891. I forget what the year is, but it's the newest version, and it was only because Awaken Realms announced that that's the next kind of Euro that they are deluxifying. I was exposed to Castles of Burgundy for the very first time in that deluxe version. I completely went in and FOMO bought based upon recommendation, which is a little foreshadowing of our topic in the future. And luckily, I ended up absolutely loving it. And that game has gotten probably more play than anything else in my collection since getting it, mostly because my gaming partner and my wife absolutely loves it. But the production was stellar. Honestly, so good. But with that said, I know even less about Puerto Rico. So I made a trade for it, pretty inexpensive trade. It was something that was kind of sitting on my shelf and collecting dust, and I got it, and we got it to the table for the first time yesterday. I won't spoil it, but I think there's a lot of depth in that game. I think as I was reading the rules, I was kind of just like, I don't really know how this thing is going to go. The action selection is really interesting. You're grabbing these action tiles, and if you're the one to choose it, you get to do the main action, plus there's a bonus action or advantage that comes with each of those selections. So there's this whole meta around what you select, and then looking at the game state and seeing what your opponent might select, because when you select something, they also get to do it. They just don't get the advantage or that bonus. You're trying to fill out your board with buildings, very similar to Castles of Burgundy. A lot of these buildings have to do with some kind of special powers, which actually makes it really interesting. There's a lot of depth there, a lot of different buildings. The version I got came with all of the expansion buildings. There's a ton of them, and we didn't even play with a third of them, I don't think. You have these production buildings that are also related to estates or these farms that you're putting in the north of your board. You can't produce the goods, fruit or coffee or sugar cane, all of that stuff. You can't produce it unless you have these production buildings also built on there. So you're balancing those. Points come from not trading. Points come from shipping these goods. I forget what the action, I think it's the captain action or something like that. And the interesting thing there is when you select that action, you're the first one to be able to put goods on a boat. And we're playing the 2-player game, so there's 2 boats. You put all that you have in a particular boat of a particular good, and that good is the only one that can go on that boat. And if you're first, you could actually fill it, and then somebody has no chance in actually shipping that good. And that's kind of, you get 1 victory point per good that you're shipping. And then it passes to the next player, and they ship goods on a remaining open boat or on the boat that you shipped if there's open spaces. There's a lot of really interesting kind of meta aspects to the game that I'm starting to see. I actually got killed by my wife out of the gates, but I like to kind of explore design early on, and I'm not particularly worried about solving the puzzle. I was actually more interested in exploring these buildings and the special abilities they give you, and what kind of strategies could that lead to. I think there's a lot there. I don't know if it's something that is going to necessitate this insane deluxeification that Castles of Burgundy did. I mean, out of the gates, it's not Castles of Burgundy. Let's just be real. But I think it's interesting. I think it'll depend on what that price point is. I don't see all of the opportunities to deluxeify that Castles had, but we'll see. I think I am going to do kind of a conventional review on good old Puerto Rico and drop it around the campaign. So yeah, more to come on that. We'll be playing that soon. FOMO pick of the week. Oh, I got to pull this one up here. This is an interesting one. Sorry, I should be prepared for this. All right, recently this is not technically it's a deep cut because funding on this project is only at 25,000 of 50. And I'm actually surprised based upon the pedigree here. And actually, I think we're 5 or 6 days into the campaign. And the first time I heard about it is as it's hitting, let's see what it is on BGG right this second. It's number 4 on BGG. I think it was as high as 2. It might have gotten to 1. I don't know. But anyways, I'm burying the lead here. It's FLED. The pedigree is Feudum. So designer Mark K. Swanson, who also designed Feudum, and FLED.oddbirdgames, publisher obviously of Feudum, the quirky, odd, weird Euro. I have actually owned it before. I had it in shrink and I was planning on getting it to the table. But then I really wanted, what did I really want? I forgot. I ended up trading it to the designer of, oh my gosh. All I'm thinking of is Downton Abbey board game. I'm totally spacing on this. You're yelling at me certainly right now. I just searched Downton Abbey board game, and there really is a Downton Abbey board game. That's not it. Oh no, why am I spacing on that name? Oh, this is gonna drive me insane. Now I just got to look at my old trades. This is ridiculous. I guess it's early. I need more coffee. Hold on. Did that do it? No. This actually has no relevancy to the discussion whatsoever, but you know, I don't care. Let's see. Completed trades. It's way back. Obsession. Anyways, I traded Feudum to the designer of Obsession for Obsession, which I thought was pretty wild. When I looked at the name, I was like, what's going on? Dan Halligan, are you the designer that's trading me your game? And yeah, he did. He traded me his games, and it was the game and all the expansions, absolutely everything. I got a really good deal, but I suppose he's getting cost on it, so he gets a good deal too. So that's a pretty good strategy when you're trading games. Trade your own game out, especially something as beloved as Obsession. Although I digress. Back to FLED. FLED is a tile laying game that actually looks super interesting. And this is why I'm surprised that I hadn't seen this yet. Our family has a rich history of tile laying. Trailblazer is our most recent obsession. I guess technically Dwarf Romantic is the most recent obsession, but we like tile laying in general. And this one's really interesting. You have a hand of tiles and you're using them to either lay and move on to, but you can only move. Well, actually, let me back up. I guess the whole reason I'm talking about this is the theme. The theme is you're stuck in a prison in Ireland around the time of the Great Potato Famine, which let's put a pin in that right this second and explain what this game is, because I think that's an important part of my FOMO and why I would want to play this game is the mechanics. You are in a prison, you're trying to escape, there's guards walking around, there's different triggers for the guards coming and getting you. You can trigger a guard's movement onto another player's tile to get them caught. But basically you're trying to escape. There's a finite number of squares that you can kind of go out from your center cell. I believe it's 6 before you have to lay the escape tile. So there's this imaginary square. You can get a play mat, by the way, in the pledge, which I'll show you here. but you're laying tiles, and in order to move through certain obstacles, you're having to pay other tiles. These are dual use tiles. I love dual use cards. I don't think I've ever seen dual use tiles. There's little symbols with things like keys to get through locked doors if you want to move on to another tile that has a door. There's files to get through bars if you want to move through another tile that has bars. There's all kinds of little quirky things about this game that I thought were really interesting. Yeah, it just looks cool. I mean, the art, some people are complaining about the art. They say in the comments, maybe this is part of why it only has 25,000 in backing. The art does look like it's from 15 years ago, but the designer describes it as whimsical, and I tend to agree. I think something is, there's only so many games we can get illustrated by the Miko, whatever it is. The same art style on so many different games is kind of like, let's move on. I like it. It's different. It's weird. It's quirky. It goes with the brand of Odd Bird Games. I think it's great. And anyways, I watched a playthrough, and it kind of looks like my type of game. So I started to look into the forums, and there is a forum here with 44 thumbs up. This is the most out of everything in this game, and 55 comments. This was started 3 months ago, and it's what's with the theme. So this BGG user, who will remain anonymous, I'll try to blur the name here, won the recent news article about this game. Myself and others were wondering what's up with the theming of this game. The potato famine is one of, if not the darkest periods of Irish history, made worse by actions of British colonial government at the time. The country has still not recovered to its pre-famine population. And yet here in 2023, we have a game that starts off from the premise that you're starving Irish peasant during the dark period, imprisoned for stealing food to stay alive. And it's a joke, ? Is a game about the Bengal famine of 1943 soon to follow? I don't know about the Bengal famine, but the mentioning of this here makes me interested in the history, and I want to go and look it up, which is part of the point. Is I don't know much about the potato famine, and this game, even being out there, makes me want to look it up. In fact, I started to look up the prison that this is based on. It's like Ireland's Alcatraz. There's this, it still exists today, and there's these kind of scenes set up, and it's this historical place, and I thought that was pretty interesting. So first and foremost, just having this game adjacent to that history makes me want to learn more about it. Anyways, you go through this, and the vast majority of people are kind of on the side of the poster, where this is just kind of bad taste. And I think it stems from the kind of color text here at the beginning of the campaign. Ireland's potato famine left you leaner than a 4-line limerick. And it says, even worse, drove you to petty theft. That sentence right there, I think, is what has gotten Mark Swanson in trouble here. In fact, he's gone to the extent of hiring, if you kind of go down the thread, hiring a cultural consultant recommended to him by Jamie Stegmaier. So, I think that's certainly something that in today's day and age, you need to come and meet these criticisms head on, and hats off to Mark Swanson. And me in particular, I'm not offended. I'm also not easily offended on things like this. I think sometimes humor and parody can help people get through tragedy. I will say no one living has been through the potato famine tragedy, so I don't know if that necessarily applies or not. But at the end of the day, it intrigues me to learn more about that historical event, and doesn't necessarily take away from it in my mind. But with that said, that's just my opinion. Who the hell am I? I'm a guy in a shed talking to a camera by himself. Don't listen to me. So what do you think about that? Is the framing of unfortunate historical events in board games problematic for you? Should that be stayed away from completely? Is the injection of humor the thing that's really in bad taste here. You know, you can touch colonialism in games, but don't inject humor. In fact, a lot of there's some points in here talking about Cole Worley and things like John Company and glorifying of colonialism as also in bad taste. With that said, it's not necessarily has the one line, Ireland's potato famine left you leaner than a 4-line limerick. I think that's kind of clever. But anyways, what do you think about it? That's all I have to say. FLED, Oddbird Games. I would love to play this game, you know, outside of the theming and the unfortunate controversy around this game. I'm surprised it only has 25,000 of 50,000 pledged. I'm still going to try it out. I haven't decided if I'm backing it or not, but I might, especially considering the availability of things like Feudum have been tough in the past. So that might be something that you need to back if you want to play it. Moving on, things I am watching this week. Well, first and foremost, how did I learn about FLED and the mechanics and it being something that I want to see? Knights Around the Table, how to play FLED. I thought it was really, really good, really well animated. Now, Knights Around the Table do some of my favorite tutorials, and it's because he makes it really visual. And if you look at any of my content, that is kind of a staple of the beliefs on my channel, is not just talk about things, although this this video series is kind of just about that. But I like to make things really visual. Anyways, if you want to learn about FLED, go check that out. Board Game Hangover, Imperium Horizons review. I really appreciate the perspective that Board Game Hangover has, and I appreciate the way that they run their channel. I love them. They're, as my tastes in content have evolved over time, they are one of the ones in which I've kind of started to float towards, if you will. Basically, I just really enjoyed the review. Imperium Horizons is something that I'm trying to get to the table right now. I typically don't like to watch reviews before I review something, but I watch everything that comes out from Board Game Hangover, so check them out. And then lastly, what I'm watching is Board Game Co. Alex and Board Game Co. did a video on bias in content creation. He's done, I think, multiple of these videos in the past. This one in particular, he was triggered by a few comments, or I guess this theme of comments that thanks him for negative coverage or negative opinions or bringing up the negative in a particular board game as being unbiased. He never gets comments about being unbiased in positive content. So I highly encourage you to get into that video and watch it for yourselves. Don't listen to my synopsis of it and take it, because I'll butcher it for sure. But the main premise is negative coverage is not inherently unbiased. I kind of thought a lot about this one. I think us, as in consumers, and I certainly put myself in there because I consume a lot of content creators' takes on board games, our skepticism does stem from this idea that there's a lot of positive coverage and there's also a lot at stake for a content creator and choosing to go positive rather than negative. The bias towards the audience believing negative more than positive is they hear it significantly less. I also think it's a story of incentives. And if you really think about the incentive to bring negative content forward, I think is actually pretty slim. I think there is definitely something to be said and kind of like the shock and awe of the content. You know, it is something different. You know, novel takes will get clicks. That may get you also some subscribers that you could then parlay into greater successes. But at the end of the day, to be a successful, I'll say, middle of the road content creator, you need access. You need access to the new games. You also eventually probably need to monetize, because this takes a ton of time and money, and middle of the road can't really monetize via Patreon. You've got to do coverage. So once you've levied a bunch of negative content or negative perspectives, and then you go to the same publisher and say, hey, I want to cover your games. Why aren't you reaching out to me? I've got 20, 30,000 subscribers. It's probably tough to actually go and get that goodwill back to you if you've went and trashed some of their games. I just think of it from a human perspective. I don't have the relationships that big content creators have, but I imagine it's all about relationships with people working at these publishers and these designers. It's not this big faceless organization. It's you want to create relationships with people, and that's just how business is done. And those relationships are really important. And if you want to maintain a relationship and you have a chance to destroy a game, first and foremost, do you actually cover it? If Ryan at so-and-so publisher is a good friend, maybe you've been out to dinner, do you choose to destroy it? Or do you maybe not cover it? Or maybe you point out all the good things and then throw a couple bad things in the end and kind of give it a 3 out of 5 or whatever it might be, and just say, hey, it's not for me, but it might be for you because of this, that, and the other. I think the incentive system is possibly broken. And it stems from, YouTube is free and content creators put their stuff out there for free. But then when you start to kind of think about, quality and quantity and getting the right games and all that stuff, it takes a ton of time and it takes a ton of money. And there's just, this game is really resource draining, whether it be money or time. And we can debate as to which one is more important, but it certainly is time in my mind. I mean, this thing has taken me a ton. I've spent hundreds of hours on videos and never been compensated once. Would it be nice to be compensated at some time for my hard work? Of course, of course. So is there anyone left to trust on YouTube? Are only the small content creators or the really big ones like, Shut Up and Sit Down or No Pun that don't take any sort of money from publishers? Are those the only ones to be trusted? Is there bias anywhere? And I guess I'll probably first preface this is I got into content creation because I consumed a ton of content that I really, really enjoyed. I really started getting heavy into this hobby because I was watching content. People like Board Game Co. and Jesse from Quackalope were heavily influential in the games that I purchased. And slowly over time, that trust was built. I suppose I knew they were taking money for certain things, but at the end of the day, I really didn't care because they built trust with me over time. And more often than not, the games in which that I bought from them hit. I would say, out of all of the games that I kind of FOMO'd into, 90% of them or so I either really liked and enjoyed and got enough play, or I still have today. In general, I think there is a path for a content creator that makes money from publishers to also kind of forge trust with the viewer. But with that said, as I start to think about what I'm doing in the future of this channel, I'm really conflicted. It's easy now because nobody offers me money whatsoever. So take that for what you will. It's easy for me to say, but I would have a really hard time taking money from a publisher, we'll say, for an overview video or whatever it may be, to then go back and actually give a review on even a separate game from the same publisher. Remember, publisher is people. It's the same people. It's the same person. The name of the game in which you gave an overview or a preview to, and it being different from another game that you're reviewing, but you weren't paid for, I think would cause a conflict of interest for me. That's just me. That's me, in which is not getting paid anything whatsoever for his content. So it's easy for me to say, but I get at the end of the day, if you are to a point in which that this is your job, it's a tougher conversation overall. I've had one scenario that has a little bit of parallel. I covered Kelp, and it was after I begged for a prototype. They didn't reach out to me, and I got it. And then I got this really weird feeling. It was a feeling of conflict. And it wasn't because the game was bad and I was doing coverage on it. It was the game was really good. And I was super honest in that review, but I had this pang, this pulling inside of me saying oh, this is a really small independent publisher just getting this game off the ground. I don't want to be the one that sinks it. I felt this immense pressure to say something positive I had a tough moment there, and that was right around when I started to feel kind of overwhelmed with this channel and the content I was putting out. I kind of had an identity crisis a little bit on what the heck I'm going to do in the future with this channel, because it was just taking up so much of my time, and to continue to run it, it's going to take up a ton of time. And if I can never parlay that into a career, I could probably never continue the pace in which I was going. You know, I've since been reinvigorated and are kind of coming to terms with why I'm doing this content, but it was still a tough experience nonetheless. Now, I can't imagine if money was connected to that. Doing a preview is not a review because there's a different letter orientation there, but it still would have felt pressure to say good things about the game, even in the context of a preview, you know. And it leads me to this kind of core question is, who am I providing value to? And that person should be the one that is essentially compensating, in my mind. As a content creator, are we providing value to publishers? If that is your ethos, then yes, you certainly should be compensated, because first and foremost, they're making money off of it. So there's that dynamic, especially if you're saying good things. But does that set you up for not being able to serve and provide value for your audience? And that is the conundrum in all of this. I think it's my mission to provide value to you. It just sucks when you put so much into it and there's nothing at the end of the tunnel, but living and dying off of like the dopamine you get from comments, thumbs, and views. And I will say there's the vast majority of videos flop, and you get a couple good ones that kind of keep you going. So certainly that return, at least for me, hasn't quite been enough. If the answer to that question is I'm serving both publishers sometimes and viewers others, is that a conflict of interest? Does that create bias? I don't know. You tell me. Does it create bias? Is the business model broken? There's this marketing apparatus that has been built around content creation, and it's highly effective. I've fallen victim to it, if you will, even though it's served me well. Let's be honest. I've bought a lot of games and a lot of them have been absolutely great. But have I spent more money because of watching people like myself tell me how great a game is? Absolutely. A significant amount more. So, you know, let's not be mistaken. This business model works really, really well for a publisher because it's also relatively cheap marketing. And in a lot of cases, free marketing, especially if you get out your stuff to kind of middle of the road content creators, if you can afford the review copies, you know, that's really cheap impressions overall. But yeah, is the business model broken? You tell me. Do you mind consuming free content knowing that there's a chance of bias being sprinkled throughout? I just said I didn't necessarily mind it per se. You build trust, this parasympathetic relationship with other content creators on the internet. You build trust over time, and if they betray that trust by, you know, schlepping a crappy game, maybe you don't listen to them the next time. I don't know. You tell me. What do you think? Or would you prefer to pay a content creator via something like Patreon? By the way, I'm starting a Patreon right now. If you want to, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Would you rather pay a content creator for an unbiased take to keep them pure as snow? You know, there are very few actually succeed in that business model because frankly, there's just not enough people willing to pay for content. There's just not. And I think, you know, especially early on, content creators kind of take that carrot and work for the publisher in certain circumstances. But would you prefer to pay for it? Would you prefer, and do you back people via Patreon? You know, is the model that shut up and sit down, no pun. I mentioned Board Game Hangover. They're independent and I think going full time soon, if I remember correctly. Are those creators more unbiased in your mind? And do you appreciate them so much that you will give them a couple bucks via Patreon to keep them independent? I don't know. You tell me. Does the word preview instead of the word review actually matter to you? Is this kind of veiled separation of potential bias creeping in by changing the word? Does that matter to you? Do you still watch previews and take their word, even though maybe they're not reviewing it? You can certainly see some opinion in some of them. Some of them do a good job and don't say anything. But does that matter if they've ever taken money from that same publisher? or ever will, frankly, in the future. I don't know. You tell me. I mean, what if that publisher has ever exchanged money whatsoever with a creator and then they do a preview? Is that unbiased because it says preview? I don't know. You tell me. What if the creator has developed a friendship with the people, the designers, the people that work for these publishers? Should that be disclosed? What if they've ever had dinner with them? What if they've ever enjoyed a laugh together? I don't know anyone in the industry, so I don't know, but I could imagine those personal relationships could possibly lead you to, paint a more rosy picture than you would otherwise. Does that bother you? Should that be disclosed? How about a tiny creator such as myself? Someone who's not anywhere near making any money for this whatsoever. What if they were to paint really broadly about a publisher and how much they love their games just to get enough attention to possibly gain access to then use to have early takes on videos that the earlier the better, you probably get more views and clicks, you probably get more subscribers, and that could then parlay me into a bigger base that could possibly lead to monetization with these same publishers. I guess the point of all this is bias everywhere. Where do you draw the line? Are you more cynical and you watch a broad number of creators and try to make up your mind? Do you watch a lot of gameplays to really understand how the game is played before, or are you somebody that listens to a creator that you trust and makes purchases sometimes, or maybe a lot of the time, because of their commentary and their opinions? I don't know. I think bias is everywhere. So these are some of the questions I'm wrestling with right now. I really appreciate Alex at Board Game Co. starting this conversation. I know I went on a tangent that wasn't necessarily related to the negative, being inherently unbiased, but still, nonetheless, this is something that's been weighing heavily on me, and I'd love to hear from you. What are your takes on it? Who do you trust and why? Or do you trust nobody? Or do you trust everyone? What would make a content creator bias? And what would keep them pure as snow? Anyways, that is it. That is episode 2. This is much longer winded. This was quite the ramble. So if you made it here to the end, I really appreciate it. There's some controversy in this episode. I don't know if I make it to episode 3. Maybe I get canceled before that and Neon Gorilla goes away. But if you enjoyed this whatsoever, let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that crap. And until next time, if there is a next time, take it easy.